I prosecuted a lot of capital cases when I was the prosecutor here. It's called circuit solicitor in the Charleston area, like a lot. And then when I was attorney general, handled the appeals when they went through the system there, and with a lot of death sentences actually carried out. And this one, it's just top line. I mean, it's the planning that went into it, and just how callous. And she's just so innocent. I mean, she's just driving to a friend's house, and apparently a random attack. The sheriff's office, I must say, this investigation is first rate. Excellent police work using the cell phone information, the search warrant executed, the defendant caught red-handed with the murder weapon, and the shell. They also got confessions from everybody. It looks to me like a case that is just really well investigated and solid proof. And when you look at this solid proof, it's just really shocking as to what happened here. You have a innocent South Carolina mother of two driving to a friend's house on a South Carolina rural road, and they were looking for someone to rob randomly and chose her. I'm sure they thought that she was defenseless, and they carried out their scheme of just this brutal, vicious, random attack on this innocent lady, and murdered her in cold blood. No reason whatsoever to do it other than the motive of robbery, which makes this case death penalty eligible in South Carolina. In South Carolina, those 17 and above have been charged in adult court or general sessions with murder, and their cases are eligible for the death penalty being sought. Of course, that's up to the discretion of the circuit solicitor, but I can't imagine under the facts of these cases that he wouldn't seek it. And what has to happen in family court, they have to have what's called a transfer hearing or a bind-over hearing for the remaining juveniles. Now, given the facts of these cases, though, I think the likelihood of them being bound over. Now, there is constitutional law that prohibits the death penalty for juveniles. And there's also constitutional law that prohibits the mandatory imposition of life imprisonment sentences for juveniles, although it can be done when the juveniles are incorrigible. You can prove that life imprisonment is warranted. I would suspect, again, without knowing all the ins and outs of this case, that the state will seek to have the younger ones being cooperating defendants. The severity of this with these illegal immigrants that shouldn't have been here in the first place, that's the first thing to recognize. They should not have been in South Carolina to begin with. So they're here, and they commit this just horrible, horrible crime. Now, apparently the oldest one, based upon the information publicly available, was the shooter. So I think he is at most risk for having the death penalty sought against him. But the others, I mean, they're in the texting that went on apparently, and the phone chats, apparently they're all in it together with the express intention of finding a helpless victim to rob in these circumstances. And the murder apparently was contemplated ahead of time, that they were going to again, they're presumed innocent, but it's hard to look past these facts that came out at the detention hearing. And it's just really, really shocking. And she was let down. This mother of two was let down by the system. These illegal immigrants shouldn't have been here to begin with. And had that not occurred, she would be living her life right now today. But they were allowed into this country. They weren't stopped. And so the depravity of the crime just shocks the conscience. And I will say that looking at how this was investigated, you have to commend the local authorities. They apparently acted really quickly. They used the best law enforcement techniques to bring these defendants to justice. And they made it very clear at their earlier press conference, they want to handle this case within the laws, within the state court system, which I commend them for, because it's a responsibility of South Carolina to protect our citizens. And then if they can be deported later after they serve what one would hope really lengthy prison sentences, if indeed not capital punishment, that then they can be deported. But I do think they need to face punishment here in South Carolina. And apparently that's the intention of Solicitor Newman there. And I commend him for that. they're basically self-authenticating. Once you get them authenticated as coming from these defendants, they speak for themselves. And so the necessity of a cooperating witness or a cooperating defendant goes down. But I still think, given the totality of circumstances here and the youth, 13, I'm thinking that perhaps they will look to have one or two of them cooperate as witnesses in exchange for a lesser sentence. But they probably don't legally need that to prove their case. Again, the physical evidence, again, is really strong too. You've got the shell casings matching, and you've just got all sorts of evidence that points. And as I understand it, they've given confessions. And so, given the strength of cases, strength of evidence here, and that's usually for a capital case to be successful in South Carolina, what you do need to have, and I think this is the case across the country, even though the standard of proof is the same, it's proof beyond a reasonable doubt. You need to have proof beyond any doubt before anyone would consider putting someone to death for a crime. And I think here it appears that the state does have such evidence. And so I would expect that the state will seek the death penalty, at least for the shooter, if not for all the others. Maybe with the, of course, they can't do it for the juveniles. And so all the other ones that are adults, that'd be my expectation. Now, adult, that's another interesting point here. Put a fine point on it. In South Carolina, juveniles under the age of 18, except you can be charged for murder at age 17 automatically, in effect. But as I understand it, the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that those under 18 are not death eligible. So I'm thinking that the state will look at the older ones in terms of seeking the death penalty and perhaps limit it to the shooter only, but that would be a decision for Solicitor Newman to make. Text messages that have been cited in open court show a complete lack of remorse by the defendants. So the evidence indicates or shows clearly a premeditated, planned murder. Then after the murder is accomplished, there's just no remorse whatsoever or any regret expressed by any of them for murdering this innocent lady. And it's really hard to understand how a human could do that to another human, but it happened. It's happened here in South Carolina. And the fact that illegal immigrants into this state to commit such crimes shouldn't have happened. It has happened. They're here. But I'm hoping the family, the surviving members of her family, can take some comfort in the fact that the local authorities are prosecuting this case so vigorously so that there might be some measure of justice coming their way.